So welcome everybody to Technology Tuesdays. Again, this is our first Technology Tuesday of a new year, a new decade. Welcome 2020. It's a very exciting year for us here at Out of the Box Technology, and we're so glad that you decided to spend your Tuesday with us here to learn about Recur360 updates. My name is Jennifer Darachuk, and I'm the marketing manager here at Out of the Box Technology, and pleased to be your moderator today. If you have any questions as Barb goes through the presentation today on Recur360 and what's new and improved, and let me know. You can go ahead and chat those over via the question box there on your control panel. A little bit about Out of the Box Technology if you are new to these presentations. We are a firm of QuickBooks experts that can do training, integration, hosting, and support surrounding all versions of QuickBooks Desktop and online. We also provide bookkeeping services, website design, custom app development, and data migrations. So as you heard her sweet voice a couple minutes ago, we have Barb. She's our Recur360 manager and advanced consultant, and she really knows Recur360 like the back of her hand. And I know that there's some exciting updates the developers had been working on. So with that, Barb, I'm going to hand things over to you and let you dive right in.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jennifer. I should be able to show my screen here so you guys can see. Can you see my Recur360 screen?
I see your inbox, your email inbox.
Okay, I have dual monitors, so I frequently forget to do the right one here. Let me change screens here and see which. See which screen I'm showing.
There we go.
How about that now?
Yep, looks
okay.
Great. Thank you.
So as Jennifer mentioned, we have been working on quite a bit of stuff, and one of them is presented to you as soon as you log into Recur360, and that is our new dashboard screen here. Many people had asked for kind of a more graphical representation of invoicing and history and things that have gone on in your Recur360 account over the last period. So we worked hard on that, added that, tried to make it as user-friendly as we could, and similar to how QuickBooks Online now presents you with some graphs as well to show you history of what's been going on with the account. So some things that you can do in this user dashboard that you first see when you log in. You have the ability to, right now, it only shows invoices and payments that were generated by Recur360. So this is my history over the last 12 months of invoicing that has happened from the Recur360 software. There is also a checkbox here to include items synced over from QuickBooks. So if I check that, it will add into the factor any invoices that you may have manually created in QuickBooks itself that weren't generated by Recur360. So you can see a consolidated across your whole QuickBooks information, the invoicing history there then. And each one of the graph points you can choose to eliminate from the graph. If, for instance, I don't want to see my all payments anymore, I can just click on that option there, and that's removed from my graph because maybe it's confusing for me. Or I don't want to see cash and check payments either. So right now these are just invoices, credit card payments, and ACH payments that's showing in the graph right now. Other things that you can do with the configuration of the graph is you can put the period to a different selection here. So if I don't want to see this on a monthly basis, maybe I want to see it more of a weekly view, I can change that view here. Okay, and then I see my trends by week here. Now, any one of these, as I'm changing it here on screen manually, is just this while I'm on this screen, it's going to display like that. If I would like for it to always show a weekly view and always include my QuickBooks invoices, you can do that under our settings option in the top right of the dashboard here. So I'm going to click my settings button and say that I want my period now to be weekly, and I want to include all of the things that came over from QuickBooks. So this is setting the default for how the graph is going to be presented to you each time you log in. One other coming feature that I do want to kind of tease you with is you notice there is a type option drop down that says historical right now. So this is going to show you all of your past invoices in our graphs currently. But if I click on the little toolbox here, it says there's going to be new features coming soon because we have plans to also incorporate this in more of a projection. So for the next 12 months if I have it set to monthly, or the next weeks if I have my graph set to that, it will project out the invoices that Recur360 will make during that period. So that's going to be a new coming feature and a new coming option for that dashboard graph. Okay. Other things that are presented on my dashboard graph here is my recent history from Recur360 activity. So I can see there was an invoice created for $275 for Bill's Windsurfing Shop. I also sent out a payment email to Travis for this invoice. There was a card payment that came in and a few more invoices that got sent out. So some kind of communication or log history, again, just to show you what's recently happened here. And each one of these activities that's listed here is color coded, the same as our colors across the top of the screen. So all emails are going to be in blue, all payment processings are going to be in green, any invoices are going to be in orange. Okay. And you have the ability as well to click into some detail at the top of each one of these options. So if I want to look at these invoices that it created where it says there are 3 of them, if I click on that, that's going to show me all of my invoice history report. So it takes me to that area very quickly. So kind of a easy way to click back and forth between things in Recur360. Just tried to give you some simplified, show some overview and detail information. Okay. And again, also with each one of these invoice overdue activities that are on the right-hand side, I can click into any one of those as well and see that was based on that particular invoice here. I can see when it was sent and what happened with that invoice in Recur360. So that's kind of the biggest feature that you see as soon as you log into Recur360 there. You're going to be presented with that new dashboard. And be aware that the dashboard is also restrictable in your user permissions. So if you have another user login that you created and you do not want them to be able to see the dashboard, you can go modify their user permissions. Say for Susie, for some reason, I don't want her to see that dashboard. I can restrict her from seeing that because she's going to be able to see it by default the very first time she logs in. And I actually restricted her access to that, so she doesn't have that dashboard feature. Also within, when we're talking about permissions, you have the ability, as I said, to restrict that dashboard permission. There's some other permission enhancements regarding recurring payments that have been added. And also, I don't remember if I talked during our last Recur360 update about things defaulting automatically based on a user permission. So I can say that anytime Susie is logged in and using the software and she goes to create something, a recurring invoice or a new customer, I want the terms that she uses defaulted to automatically be due on receipt. And the location, because this is my QuickBooks Sandbox company that's connected to online, to be set to the Florida store. Now, those are defaults only. She would have the ability, as she's creating those transactions or creating those customers, to change it. But it just kind of speeds up her order entry process if it's already preset for her. Okay. Next feature I want to talk about is a few reporting updates that we've come up with in the Recur360 side. So if I go to my reports menu here, I have a new payment methods report. We had a lot of clients who wanted to be able to see what customers had added new payment methods or what payment methods were saved on particular customers, who had saved them, and if they were linked to any recurring invoices or recurring payments. So we have a report that'll show you that now, that a customer email link added a Visa card to Duke's basketball company on 10/17. So that way, when a customer says, yes, I updated my credit card information, you have the visibility here to acknowledge that or see that or run a report ahead of time to be able to see how it was entered and what kinds of transactions it's affecting. So that's that report. Also, if you go edit a customer, you're going to be able to see that detail information in the customer record as well. So if I go to the Barb company here, and I go to the options menu and choose to edit customer, that information about how that card was added is also displayed here. And one more place is in our recurring invoices screen. In the payment type, it is also shown here that if it is linked to a recurring invoice for Barb company, that Barb added that via the customer email link. So a lot more trackability for you to be able to see how that payment method got added to that recurring invoice or that customer. A new feature in our cards expiring emails here under our settings menu, under the account area. We have the ability, we've always had the ability to email a customer ahead of time to warn them that their credit card information is about to expire. But now we have the ability to send that and only do it with customers linked to an active transaction and then continue to email them every 25 days, or you set the frequency of how often you would like to resend that same reminder email if they've not updated their card. So this way it'll kind of keep bugging them that, hey, your card is linked to a recurring invoice and you still haven't updated it, to try to prompt them to update prior to the next recurring invoice processing. Okay. Another feature in our area of options and settings again is, while we're here in the account settings area, we have the ability now to default intervals on your recurring invoices. So when you create a new recurring invoice in Recur360, instead of you maybe having to set the frequency, maybe your system is you invoice weekly, so you want that to default every time you create a recurring invoice. And not only can you set it to weekly, but you can set it to every 2 weeks on a Tuesday, whenever you process those invoices most often. So then anytime you create a recurring invoice from within Recur360, you don't have to go and change the frequency options, kind of, again, trying to speed up and make things more efficient for you. Again, with any of our defaults, you have the option to change it as you create that new recurring invoice, but it's going to pre-populate that for you automatically and kind of speed up that process. Okay. Our next new setting has to deal more with our QuickBooks desktop side, and so I'm going to switch accounts here while I'm logged in to my QuickBooks desktop customer here now. We have the ability inside of Recur360 now to be able to mark a customer as inactive. If I have a client who I'm not going to be invoicing through Recur360 anymore, I don't want anybody being able to add new invoices or add recurring invoices to them. I want to take this customer here called New Prospect, and I don't want to see them anymore in my list. So inside of Recur360, I would open up their customer record and go to the options menu and choose to edit the customer. And then down in the very bottom right-hand side of that edit screen is the ability for me to make that customer inactive. So if I mark this and I press OK, and then I press Save and Sync, that customer now is removed from my main customer screen. I don't see them visually in my list anymore unless I choose to show inactive customers. And then I would be able to see them. So there's my new prospect that was marked as inactive. Okay. And I can see them here. I also have the ability to remake them active again. And this option also sent over a sync status to, no, I'm sorry, I was incorrect. That does that only on the Recur360 side. So marking that customer inactive on our side, you would also want to still go mark them inactive in QuickBooks as well to be able to set that option. Okay. So that is the making a customer inactive. Let's move on to our next setting here. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over, guys. I'm doing things as I listed them here in our new feature release instead of organizing them. But in our settings as well, back to those, under email, you have the ability now to show the invoice link and do some other features as well. You have the option to check if you want all open invoices to be checked to pay by default. We had scenarios where clients would frequently send invoice emails to customers, and the customer would say that they had paid the invoice, but they would forget to check the invoice that they were paying. So they were really just saving payment information as opposed to paying an invoice. So if this option is checked, then by default, every time a customer clicks that pay online link, they're going to be presented with their customer page that shows them all their open invoices, and the open invoices that they have. Let me go back to my cash sale customer who always has quite a few open invoices for me, and I'll click on his pay online link. Okay. And what he sees here now is all of his open invoices. He has a total of 13 invoices. They're all pre-checked or pre-selected to be paid. So $4,800 is going to be paid right now if they enter their credit card information. They have the ability then to uncheck the ones that they do not want to pay and reduce the amount of the payment. So kind of how would you like to present that link to customers? Would you like them to be pre-selected so that it's automatically going to pay the invoices that are there and open, or do you want them to be blank by default and then have to choose which invoices need to be paid? Now let's go back to a few other report updates in Recur360. So if I go back to my reports menu here, the next one in my list here is our recurring invoice lines report. This is an area that we have that's going to show you every line item in Recur360 that is currently on a recurring invoice for a customer. So this is what next month's invoicing detail is going to look like, basically, or the next period for each one of your recurring invoices is going to look like. And we added a field in here for customer type to be able to sort and see things visually by that. So you can kind of pull a report and look at your different areas of your business or your different customer types and what are going to be invoicing to those. So the customer type has been a new field that we added there. Also, just as a let you know what's coming up in new features that are going to be here within the next 30 days, in our recurring invoices lines area, we're also going to add an edit feature that is kind of a quick edit, which would allow you to very easily and very quickly, let's say if I want to update pricing on all of my next recurring invoices for my part numbers called interface, I could very quickly here search for interface. It would, oh, and I only have one of those, and it would give you the ability then to either increase the pricing or change information like that from one grid screen here, instead of having to open each individual invoice and change those and submit those. So it's going to give you a little bit faster data entry update area to be able to update pricing and things like that on recurring invoice items in the future. That's a feature that should be coming within the next 30 days. I wanted to mention that since we were in that report already. Now, let's talk again about one of the login permissions that I mentioned, and that is we have the ability to limit access on a user for recurring payments. So payment collection permissions, you now have the ability to, where is my payment collection is a new one down at the bottom here. So I have the ability for them to be able to perform payments on any customer or transaction, or if they only have the ability to do payments on things that they are assigned to, where they may be the customer assigned to them. Or I can say they cannot process payments at all. So they cannot view, add, or delete any payment methods. Okay, so that's kind of the turn all payment processing for this user off. Then you also have the ability to hide the customer's email payment link from those as well. Because obviously, if you don't want them processing payments, you potentially don't want them sending out emails to clients as either with a pay online link, because they might have the ability to click on that link themselves. So in that payment collection area, there's some user by user restrictions that can help you prevent some people from processing payments inside of Recur360. Kind of have an authorization for that. Okay. Now, another feature that just came on board that's kind of nice from our collection center. In our recurring invoices area, you have always had the ability to create a recurring invoice on one date and then tell the system to automatically process the payment 5 days later or 10 days later automatically. We never had that in our collections area, though. And now we've added that feature. So if you have a client who has an open invoice, it's Barb from my cash sale, and she says, hey, my credit card's going to be available on Friday. You already have my credit card information. Can you go ahead and just process the payment on Friday? So now I can go to my collection center and say, yes, for this particular invoice here, I want to select process payment. And instead of processing it right away, I have a checkbox up here that says schedule that for a different date. And if I check that, then a calendar opens and I can pick the day that I want to process it on. So I'll just mark the process as on Friday the 17th. And what amount do I want to charge? Do I want to charge the full balance that's open on that day? Or do I want to charge a specific amount, maybe not the full amount? The advantage of leaving it as the current balance is if they happen to click the pay online link before then, or if you manually process a payment before then and either reduce the balance due or completely pay off that invoice, that will automatically stop that processing from happening. So you wouldn't have to do anything in that scenario. It would just know, oh, the invoice is already paid. I don't need to process that credit card anymore. But if it's still has balance due on the morning of the 17th, when I press the process payment button here, that is now scheduled on that particular invoice. And if I look at that invoice inside of Recur360, I will see that there is a scheduled payment here that is scheduled to process on the 17th. And I don't have to do anything else. It'll automatically process that payment and email the client with that receipt then that it's paid. Okay. So way to future date those payment processings from open invoices now. Okay. Next user interface update is inside of Recur360 and many of our drop-down screens now, like the customer terms and things like that are just drop-down lists that come directly from QuickBooks. We understand that some clients had quite a few line items in here, for example, in class or in sales rep maybe, that it was difficult to scroll down or see everything that was in there. So now the majority of our drop downs will also type and begin searching. So if I want to search for part of that entry, it will begin searching the drop down choices and filtering those as I begin typing things. So kind of a faster way to speed up things if you have a long list of items in customer type or sales rep or something like that. Okay. Again, bouncing around, I'm going to go back to some reporting features now. If we go to reports and our invoice history report from Recur360, that has always traditionally just shown you invoices that were generated from Recur360. So anything that was created by Recur360 would show up here as an invoice, whether it was paid, not paid, whatever happened to it didn't matter. It would show up here. And now we've added the feature, since you might have created an invoice manually inside of QuickBooks. So similar to the dashboard, I can tell it to include things that have been created outside of Recur360 in QuickBooks directly. So if I uncheck this option here, then I'm going to see a little bit more information as far as an invoice that may have been created directly in QuickBooks and not necessarily inside of Recur360 itself. So I don't know if I have any of those that apply in this period. Probably not, because I tend to create most of my invoices inside Recur360. So right now that doesn't have any effect on my number of records. Still got 21 entries in there, whether or not it was created in Recur360 or inside of QuickBooks, in my database anyway. But it's available for you. Again, that way you have full detail, full reporting if you want to download it to a CSV, export it, do some analysis on it or that kind of thing. You have that information all consolidated in one area now. And back to our reports, we have a recurring payments report now. Hi, Jennifer, can you guys all still hear me?
Yeah, just went out for like 2 words, but you're back. I hear you now.
Okay, I worried. The webinar sent me a message, so I wasn't sure if that was you guys or not. Good.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay, so the other, if I'm connected to Intuit, I do have under our payment processors area, I'm not sure if I am connected to Intuit for this. So if we go to our settings and go to payment processors and choose Intuit Merchant Services, if I am connected to a QuickBooks Desktop account, because we do integrate to QuickBooks Desktop Canadian version and US version. So when you're integrated into a merchant services as well, your processing may be in a different currency if you're in Canada versus if you're in the United States. So we've now added the ability for our Canadian customers to put a currency setting on their merchant processing. So anytime you're trying to process a credit card through Intuit Merchant Services in Canada, it will process in Canadian dollars if you set that setting there. Okay. And you do, by the way, have to make sure that those currencies are set up in your QuickBooks company file there, obviously, because that setting needs to be chosen there and enabled, or you'll get a failure message when it tries to process any Intuit transactions there. Okay, well, that's everything that I have in my list for new features that have been released recently. And I kind of teased you with one of the big new features that's going to be coming in the next 30 days. Two of the other big things that we are working on for future updates, again, probably within the next 30 to 60 days, is the ability to automatically email and or automatically process a payment on any invoices that import into Recur360 from QuickBooks. So we had a lot of requests for, because we can automatically email things when you create invoices out of Recur360. Well, we still do have, obviously, people who create invoices in QuickBooks directly. And when those sync in, they didn't want to have to come to the collection center and remember which ones had been emailed to clients or not emailed to clients. So we're going to have a feature in the settings to be able to tell it, if you import an invoice from QuickBooks, automatically email it to the customer from Recur360, and then therefore that would include the pay online link if you enabled that, and also another setting to be able to automatically process a payment to that invoice that comes in if there is a payment method saved on that customer's account. So again, a setting option for you if you have clients who say, you know, hey, I want you to go ahead and automatically pay my invoices as soon as you create them. They're set up for auto pay. Then the system could automatically make that happen even if the invoice was generated in QuickBooks and not necessarily in Recur360. And then one other new option as well that they're working on, again, under the settings area, is going to give you the ability to control the invoice number that gets created when Recur360 makes an invoice into QuickBooks. So I don't know exactly where it's going to go, whether it's going to go in account or it's going to go in the email area. I would think it comes into this invoice settings area. But generally speaking, especially when you're connected to QuickBooks Desktop for Recur360, you would have to create the invoice in Recur360, and then the next time it's synced with QuickBooks, which might be 30 minutes, that's when the invoice number would get assigned by QuickBooks. For QuickBooks Online, since we have that direct integration, it came back with an invoice number right away. But that would potentially hold up the email getting sent to the client, because if you tell it to only send the email after the QuickBooks invoice number got assigned, then there may be some time delay between the time you create that recurring invoice and the time it gets into QuickBooks, gets the invoice number assigned, and the email goes out to the client. So now we're going to give you the ability to set up what the next invoice number is going to be in Recur360 and have it push into QuickBooks with that invoice number specified. I don't have all the specs on that as far as if we're going to allow prefixes to be assigned or how that numbering format is going to be set up yet, but it's definitely something we're working on the next 30 to 60 days to be incorporated into the software as well. And based on that, as you noticed in my invoice history report, when I was pulling up my QuickBooks Desktop connected account, you see, as a matter of fact, here I have 2 invoices that are pending a sync, so they don't have their QuickBooks invoice number assigned yet because I haven't run my web connector. So that information has not gone over to QuickBooks and gotten the next number assigned. Okay. Well, Jennifer, I think I covered most of our features that we've updated since our last Technology Tuesday, and then kind of giving you a little bit of an idea of where we're headed next. Is there any questions or anything that anyone's asked in the meantime?
Sure. Thank you so much, Barb. I think that I love that you gave us a couple little teasers as what the guys are working on and guys and gals are working on. So the next update you have for us will have some really exciting things to share as well. So we appreciate that. One question that I have, and if anyone else has questions, go ahead and chat those in. But the one that came through is, how do you decide what updates to make? And if I have a suggestion, where should I submit?
Oh, that's a great question. We take, obviously, user feedback from any time we're talking to our clients, either on a support chat or a scheduled appointment. If they express interest in a new feature, we always submit that to our development department. And you have a couple of options there. We've had requests where customers just mention something that they'd like to see in the software in the future, and we add that to our development queue. Then it's up to our developers to kind of evaluate it and decide when they'd like to incorporate it into the software. But we also have had customers who've asked for enhancements or product features that they really need to run their business. And we offer them the option of paying for that as a customization. The nice part about that is our fees aren't very high on that. We quote it based on how many hours we think that project would take to complete. And then the timeline would be specified for you. So we'd tell you, here's how much it would cost, and it would be completed by this day. And then you'd have a good timeline and an expected completion date of when it would be incorporated. And then also, the approach that we take with any of those customizations are, you paid for it because you need it, but it also gets incorporated into our basic product. So it's available to all the users as a new feature once that is released. So everybody's going to benefit from it. That's another reason we try to keep the cost low on.
Yeah, that's excellent and good to know too. Like, if it is something that you really would need for your business, that can kind of be shot to the top of the list, as you said. Like, the developers have their whole queue of features that people have requested, but you kind of pay for, I want this to the top of the list so that it can be done for me and what I need for my business or customer needs for their business, right?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, that was the only question that came in. Again, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and send those over, or we'll share our contact information at the end of this webinar. So if you think of something, or just jump on the live chat or send us an email, we'd be happy to address those questions. So Barb, thank you so much for your time today. It's
Oh,
really
sure.
exciting to hear everything that's going on with Recur360 and how it's grown over the couple of years since we've developed it. And we can't wait to see where it's going to go through the next year. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome anytime. Thanks, guys, for watching.
Of course. So I'm just going to take it back here and share my screen and talk about what we have coming up for Technology Tuesdays and other training opportunities here at Out of the Box Technology. The beginning of February, on February 4th, we will be welcoming Mike Milan as he goes over his presentation on 10 ways to supercharge your cash flow. Mike runs the Elevate Financial Training Institute, and he is a great presenter. We had him last year in 2019, and his session was wonderful. So if you haven't yet seen Mike or heard any of his presentations, I highly encourage you to register for this one, as he honestly does a great job and the information he has to share is really valuable. And then we also have our first two-day seminar of the year. It's going to be on QuickBooks Online. It'll be February 20th and 21st. It's a two-day seminar. Again, you can earn up to 16 continuing education credits for that. We will be holding it in-house at our Oregon office. So if you're in the Tigard or Portland area, you can join us face-to-face, but we'll also be broadcasting the seminar via GoToWebinar. So if you're anywhere else around the country or around the world, you can log on virtually and still get the same experience. We'll send you all the materials that everyone who's joining in-house will receive as well. So check that out. If you need some QuickBooks training, this is a great opportunity to take advantage of that. So again, thank you so much everyone who joined us today, or if you're watching on demand, thank you for watching. If you have any further questions about Recur360 or out-of-the-box technology overall, or if you have a topic that you want us to look into and present at a future webinar, send that over to me and we would definitely research it and get it on the schedule. So thank you all for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at our next presentation.